I am Dr. Abir Muhib, an assistant professor of English literature at the Higher Institute of Art Criticism, Academy of Arts, Egypt. My paper is entitled Egyptian Identity and History in the Eyes of ReemBassiouney, a study of Sons of the People, the Mamluk Trilogy. سوف أشارك بورقة بحثية تحت عنوان الهوية المصرية والتاريخ من منظور الكاتبة الروائية ريمباسيوني، دراسة تحليلية لروايتها أولاد، الناس، ثلاثية المماليك. وسوف أقوم بإعطاء نظرة سريعة لبحثي باللغة الإنجليزية. The outline of the presentation we will discuss in this presentation: aim of the study, a hint about Professor ReemBassiouney, an Egyptian novelist and a linguist, and her works, her concept of history, and an analytic study of the Son of the People Mamluk Trilogy, to know what's the difference between Egyptian identity and Mamluk identity, and then we come to the conclusion. First of all, we have the aim of the study. This study attempts to examine the concept of identity in the eyes of Bassiouney. The Mamluk Trilogy falls in 3 volumes, and the collection is characterized by a deep respect for spiritual life and values. It also asks questions about identity, responsibility, and what happens when people realize that their attitudes or actions are no longer in association with their personal values. Bassiouney, in her historical novel, compared between the original Egyptian identity and the Mamluks' acquired identity. It is important for us as Egyptians to understand the difference between the two identities. Being Egyptians don't mean just being born in Egypt, but it is really this feeling that you are ready to sacrifice your life and fight and build for this country. When writing about history of Mamluks in medieval Cairo, Bassiouney didn't write about the Mamluks as a symbol of oppression, just like other writers, but she rather wrote about the human experience. We'll move on to who is Professor ReemBassiouney. She is a sociolinguistics professor of sociolinguistics at the American University in Cairo, and she was born in Alexandria 1973, and she had written many novels. Among her notable work we have Dr. Hana, the Mamluk Trilogy, Fountain of the Drowning, and Ibn Talon Trilogy. She also won many awards such as the Weiris Cultural Award and King Fahd Center for Middle East and Islamic Studies, and she is the first woman to win Naguib Mahfouz Award in Literature, and was given this award by the Supreme Council of Culture in Egypt. She wrote both fiction and academic books. Among her fiction we have The Smell of the Sea, The Pistachio Seller, and Dr. Hana, and The Tour Guide. All her novels had been written in Arabic and translated into many languages, including English. And the Mamluk Trilogy was the best seller and winner of the 2019-2020 Naguib Mahfouz Award in the Best Egyptian Novel category from Egypt's Supreme Council for Culture, and it was translated by Roger Allen in 2022. Then we have look about her academic books. She wrote many academic books such as The Functions of Code Switching, Arabic Sociolinguistics, and Arabic Language and Linguistics, and the final one is Language and Identity in Modern Egypt. So she's mainly concerned with history and identity and how that helped informing the Egyptian identity. We move on to Bassiouney's concept of history. How she sees history. She sees history as liberating. That's to say, history makes her free to combine certain themes better than contemporary writing. It is easy for her to write about history, and she feels that history is a part of her. Rima Abu Nasr describing ReemBassiouney. She steers clear of reflecting her own opinions in her writing. I usually don't state opinions, I just describe, and interpretation is up to the reader. I don't want to prescribe how to live, I'm just describing how life is. However, she hopes that history has the same effect on readers as it did on her. We need to liberate ourselves in the same way I liberated myself while writing. We are speaking about medieval times, yet we impose their values today. She expressed, we need to go back and analyze what they went through to become that way, and accordingly we can live by their values in our modern time. Okay, through her historical novels, Bassiouni aims to connect people with their historical past. Some parts of the history are very dark and haven't been taught at school, either at all or in the right way. Bassiouni wants people to read more about their history, and she said you can't understand the present without understanding the past. It is related to the present in a way. And Nahdat Master Publishing House described Reem Bassiouni said, being a lover of history who is proud of her Egyptian identity to the utmost extent, she succeeded in presenting wonderful novels in which she merges history and fiction, while shedding light on some of the most important historical periods that the country has gone through to enrich the minds of readers and guide them to researching and penetrating history to understand the past, its impact and its close connection with the present and the okay. Thus, Reem Bassiouni approaches history with a deeper outlook on the human experience of the Mamluks in Egypt as they came as owned slaves and then later ruled Egypt for around 267 years. Bassiouni, being an introspective person, she probes the Mamluks' human experience in a way to understand their mind, thoughts, feelings, and inner workings, thus introducing new and fresh ideas on identity, history, and what it means to Egyptians. Okay, we have a look at her novel, the Mamluk Trilogy. This is a masterful, her fiction, a masterful and multi-generation epic set in Cairo, and it has multiple settings. We move from Cairo to Alexandria to Greater Syria or the Western Desert, but it is focused around several historical buildings of Mamluk Cairo. There are also brief scenes from 2005 to 2017, and the heart of the book lies in the first of the three main stories set in the 14th century. Okay, Bassiouni was inspired by Sultan Hassan Mosque to write about Mamluk's history, and before writing her trilogy she researched for 3 years in history, and she believes that Sultan Hassan Mosque and schools reflects the eternity of architecture in medieval Cairo. And she said about in an interview about the importance of history for Cairo. So for Egypt, Sultan Hassan Mosque and its schools is something so formidable. It is a call for all Egyptians to think and respect their heritage, and it is a call for the government to spend more money. When visiting the mosque, she feels that the walls are talking to me. I think that literature should humanize areas, buildings, and people. Son of the Peoples, the Mamluk Trilogy offers a vivid portrait of Egypt's Mamluk period, and the novel is set in medieval Cairo, shedding light on 3 generations: the Egyptians, foreign-born Mamluks, and their descendants. Okay, we have Myrna Abdullah in an interview with Reem Bassiouni describing the meaning of history. She said, known to have existed for almost 30 centuries, Egypt's soul has always been deeply historical. In every direction and behind every historic building, there is a rich past of people who came from elsewhere and then settled, built, and fought from this land. From the pyramids we see the past of the ancient Egyptians, and similarly from other iconic buildings like the Sultan Hassan Mosque, there is also the past of the Mamluks, who in contrast to what may think also precede themselves. Okay, so the book contains 3 main tales: Awlad, Nas, children of the people, Qadi Uwais, or a Qadi named Uwais, and Hadith al-Layali. Together they combine Bassiouni's careful historical research with the fineness of a talented storyteller. The characters are believable, their dialogue both meaningful and natural. The story pulls the reader along with surprises and a clear narrative arc. It also examines and reimagines the experiences of boys who were captured and enlisted into Mamluk service, and the ways that they were and were not integrated into society in Cairo. Then we'll move on to Egyptian identity versus the Mamluk identity. That's the main focus of the study. Identity plays an important role in an individual life, and through writings can help us develop an understanding of how suffering affects our present selves. The ways we visualize and realize the meaning of these events allow us to probe the past and reconstruct our identities. So, ReemBassiouney said that the Egyptian identity is a component of many social variables. She said that the backbone of Egyptian identity historicality, locality, and ethnicity. Religion as a social variable is a complex one, the result of Egyptians believing that they share a common history, environment, and ethnicity is the Egyptian character. Egyptians as a community are portrayed in patriotic songs as sharing character traits, habits, and a strong sense of communal solidarity. Okay, so being Egyptian doesn't mean that you were only born in Egypt and you are an Egyptian citizen, but you should bear the same history and ethnicity. However, the Mamluks felt that they bear the Egyptian identity because they were born in Egypt, and we have ReemBassiouney describing the Mamluk said, I keep asking myself what happens to sons of the people in this city. Do they wander around this quarter and blend in with everyone else? This city is weird. It can swallow up like the river and rob you both of memory and purpose. In the city we are all crazy. Okay, so ReemBassiouney depended on history in discovering the Egyptian identity, and she added that we must contemplate our history as parts of it could be obscure. The Mamluks perceived themselves as Egyptian as some of their children. As for the conclusion, to conclude, we are living amid lots of challenges and changes, and that insulate us to think about our identity. We keep discovering ourselves. In order to understand ourselves, we must know our history. Bassiouney said in her novel Sons of the People, Mamluk Trilogy, we need to embrace our history, the good and bad, to know our identity, and politics is one of the main components that make us unable to probe our history. Thank you.